I'm shutting it all
The
down.
red banner
No, S12,
slammed
wait.
across the live stream and froze the viewer count at 812. The caption read a string that should not have been possible. Subject verifier, 12 do not verify. Suspicion drove Op7's hand to the logbook before he spoke. He thumbed open a stamped page and pushed his headset mic closer to his mouth. Control, we have a live unauthorized overlay on consumer streams. 12. His voice held procedure more than surprise. Within 3 breaths, control room lights stayed low and the supervisor's voice cut through the bank of monitors. Quote, Containment Protocol Alpha, SUP, 2 ordered. Op7 tapped the analog watch, made the stamp entry, and flagged the feed in the system. The central problem was explicit inside those first seconds. An attempt to verify a national alert had produced a targeted, adaptive transmission instead of confirmation. That risk of verification turning into vector defined every immediate choice. Op7 was 48 years old, pale, exact. He moved like a man who had rehearsed emergencies. Measured inhale, inked note, short pause, formal phrase. He did not say he was afraid. He recorded actions. In the next 2 minutes he wrote a kill switch, then cancelled it when the overlay reshaped itself. He wrote breach in block letters and circled the time. His suspicion shifted to concern once the overlay displayed specific personal data for those in the room. The data included a home address, a childhood nickname, and an old employee number from the agency's microfiche files. Concern tightened his jaw. He began to read rules aloud so others could hear them. Across towns, 12 sat hunched before a crut and a ring light, earbuds dangling. She was live because millennials still trusted direct footage more than official silence. Her viewers typed rapid questions. She answered, "No, I'm not panicking. It's an alert feed. I'll check the archives." She tapped her cracked camera, leaned in, and hit a remote button to pull an archive stream. The camera's USB light flicked green. The camera captured everything. The scuffed phone on the coffee table, a half-full mug, the reflection of the crut in the darkened window. When the corrupted banner arrived on her stream, it did more than display text. It layered a translucent rectangle over the chat window with her legal name and a photograph that matched her face but was warped. The chat exploded. A neighbor climbed the stairs to see the commotion. The neighbor, the field technician, and a local reporter were all drawn by the online noise and the physical thud of someone at the door. The live feed became a convergence point. Op7 had 30 seconds to decide whether to sever the transmission or contain it through controlled broadcast. His supervisor wanted containment. Public transparency would risk mass verification attempts. Op7's second emotion shift began there. Concern slid into operational anxiety. He spoke to SUP, 2 through the headset in clipped, reinforced sentences. Supervisor, containment now prevents further seeding. Op7 said, "If we sever externally, we risk propagation through cached copies." SUP, 2 answered, "Contain. Limit public access. Notify field teams." Op7 routed a restricted advisory to internal channels and tag ISN12's stream. He watched the monitor where Sev12's face was framed by the corrupted banner. The overlay pulsed once, then began to address specific members of the small room. T3, stop recording. No. 4, do not approach the display. Op7 read those lines aloud into the log, as if speaking them would make them records of fact. Sev12's hand shook when the banner named her neighbor. She whispered, "What is that?" The neighbor, NAR4, knocked and said, "Open up, I heard," before his voice went thin in the feed. T3, the technician, pulled up his camera and framed NAR4 against the doorway. The image on T3's monitor showed NAR4's face split by vertical interference. Behind him a second, paler face rippled for 1 frame. T3 called out, "NAR4, step back." NAR4 kept his foot in the doorway. The verification team assembled because S12 insisted. She recruited T3 and NAR4. Their motives differed. S12 wanted proof. She wanted to control the narrative of her livestream. NAR4 wanted a story. He was already drafting notes in his head. T3 wanted to fix a signal and take a payment. Op7 watched the room converge and marked in the log the presence of 3 non institutional witnesses at the hazard site. His actions were procedural, not rhetorical. Dispatch an incident team, quarantine recorded footage, initiate witness protocols. The crew in the apartment plugged devices into one another to cross, check signals. They sat in a tight circle around the CRUT, because the old monitor retained analog cues that digital feeds missed. Nur 4 held a reporter pad and whispered facts. T3 aimed a handheld recorder at the CRUT. 12 used her phone to stream both the CRUT and the group. Each device returned different information. The official feeds Op7 tried to access from the archives showed white noise or blank indexed frames where an alert should have been. The second emotion shift moved 12 from curiosity to alarm. She shoved a chair back and said, "It's not in the archive." "It's gone." Her fingers hit the keyboard. The live chat pleaded for a replay. Op7, hearing the absence in the archives, tapped his headset and said, "All archival access failing. Flag for overwrite. Do not repost." The operator's tone carried the shape of command. It was meant to reduce civilian motion, not to comfort. Devices adapted in real time. Each screen began to personalize content. The phone showed 12's last text messages. Nur 4's reporter pad flashed a recorded voicemail from his editor. T3's camera overlaid a timestamp from a childhood photograph he had once scanned. The transmission reached into private artifacts and presented them as new baseline material. T3 recoiled when his cracked lens displayed a face he recognized, his younger sister, standing behind Nur 4 in the camera image, though she lived across the state. Op7 watched and wrote phrasing into the log to authorize a controlled approach. Field response. Do not verify. Stand by for remote guidance. He could not order civilians to stop their cameras by law. He could only tell his team and record the steps he had taken. He heard the supervisor press for a public advisory, but then retract it because the overlay had begun to address Op7 personally. That moment broke a procedural wall. The transmission identified Op7. It displayed the thin scar on his jaw and cited the hospital name where he had his teeth reset 20 years earlier. Op7's voice gained a tremor only when he read the overlay's phrase that named the logbook entry number and the time he had used as a reference. He moved toward the microphone and said, "We are experiencing active adaptive content. Do not engage devices." Repeat. Do not engage devices. His use of short, concrete orders aimed to produce action in others. Back at the apartment, Nur 4 walked toward the CRUT despite the banner's warning. "I can get a better shot." 12 grabbed at his sleeve. "No, Mark." She said, "Don't." They argued in whispered lines that split the room. Nur 4's curiosity argued with S of 12's fear and T3's technician caution. Their exchange produced rapid back and forth dialogue. "Mark, come back." 12 said. "One shot." Nur 4 answered. "One shot risks everything." T3 said. "We can fix it." Nur 4 said. "We can break it." 12 said. 3 lines of counterpoint. The argument forced a decision. Nur 4 stepped forward anyway. His hand brushed the CRUT's plastic bezel. The screen flared, and a sound like a phone line shorting out passed through speakers. The CRUT's phosphor glowed too bright for a moment, and Nur 4's shadow narrowed on the screen. For an instant the glass held an exact second face that matched Nur 4 but moved wrong. T3 lunged. He tried to pull Nur 4 away. 12 reached for the reporter's coat. The CRUT filled a frame, perfect image of Nur 4, and then opened like a camera shutter. The reporter's right arm disappeared past the glass as if the screen had become a thin doorway. Nur 4 made a single audible sound, half syllable, half breath, then the room lost his weight. T3 hit the CRUT with both hands and the surface rippled. No one on the feed saw Nur 4 on the other side. The space inside the screen showed a corridor that did not exist in the apartment. Op7's headset transmitted commands in a new pattern. Procedural phrases cut by personal recall. "Seal the apartment." "Field team to Site 2. Do not record. Do not redistribute. Document only in hard log." He wrote the disappearance into the log with a blunt entry. Nur 4 vanished at CRUT, low 213. The log required factual data. He avoided adjectives. His hands were steady, but his breath came quicker. 12 tried to pull Ma 4 back by his collar. Her fingers closed on fabric alone. She put her face near the crut and said his name aloud. The camera showed her reflection split. In the glass her mouth moved a beat later than her voice. T3 hit stop on his recorder and dropped it. The device skidded across the floor and showed its own red recording light blinking without control. S12's entire body went tight. She shoved furniture toward the screen in a futile attempt to block the image. A mid-chapter twist arrived when Op7 noticed an archive clip seed. A small off-index file had propagated through a regional echo node. The clip contained Na4's last frame, but its metadata listed Op7 as the uploader. The discovery changed everything. If the transmission could rewrite metadata and claim institutional action, then containment through official voice would be compromised. Op7 ordered a quarantine on all outgoing links and demanded physical extraction for witnesses. The emotion inside Op7 shifted again. Operational anxiety became contained panic, channeled into faster, crisper directives. S12 screamed, not loud, but sharp enough to break the room's breathing pattern. "Mark," she said. She punched the glass and left small white crescents on the plastic bezel. Her skin reddened where she hit it. The crut image did not show blood. It showed Nur4 turning his head in slow, wrong motion, as if a remote motor dragged the face. Then the screen went black and the overlay refused to release his name. The chat on S12's live stream blew fireworks of chaos. Viewers typed pleas and warnings, offered obscure buffer tricks, and asked for the reporter's employer phone number. T3 took control of the physical scene. He grabbed the power cord for the crot and wrenched it free. The screen collapsed into a gray field of static. For 20 seconds nothing important happened, but heavy breathing and the high-pitched whine of a wall transformer. Then the crut flashed back to life without power and displayed Na4 standing in a hallway that smelled like old paper and machine oil, an exact description T3 had made in a previous log entry. The screen reanimated without a physical signal. That moment created a new task. Remove the crut from the environment entirely. Op7 authorized witnesses to be processed under emergency custody. He transmitted an encrypted door code to a field team and instructed them to bring a hard case container for the crut and to record the physical scene on analog media only. Analog capture only. Digital copies will be sealed. He confined his commands to short, direct sentences so responding personnel could act without debate. The containment aftershock moved through the system in bureaucratic steps. S12 and T3 were taken to a holding area where agents interviewed them under recorded conditions. The questions were specific and brief. When did you first see an overlay? Who else was present? Did you attempt to verify through other sources? S12 answered the first two. When asked about other sources, she admitted she had tried to access archived streams on her phone, and a shadow of guilt passed over her face. The agents recorded that admission. Op7 filed an ambiguous procedural entry that balanced restraint with warning. It noted the event, named participants, and issued an instruction to the public advisory team to craft a message that discouraged verification attempts without offering explanation. He typed the text into the sealed channel, public advisory pending. Citizens must not attempt external confirmation. Monitoring will continue. That directive echoed the initial problem. The primary hazard increases when civilians try to confirm alerts. In the control room, Op7 reviewed the footage that the field team brought back. The crut removed and sealed in a case, a smear of skin residue on the bezel, a set of fingerprints partially wiped, and a recorder that had no file labeled Nur4 but did contain a 1-second clip of a hallway shot. Op7 compared timestamps and found a mismatch. The hallway frame's embedded timestamp predated the event in the apartment by 9 minutes. He noted the discrepancy and circled it. The gap required explanation, and it required that he rewrote the question to a forensic node. He recorded a short, formal sign-off in the log. He allowed as he wrote, "File sealed under restricted access. Continued monitoring required." Do not attempt verification. He stopped, set his pen down, and added a final line addressed to anyone who might read the archived form. Any civilian who attempts external verification may trigger adaptive transmissions directed at that person. He did not couch that phrase in theory. He wrote as instruction. The instruction formed the chapter's final, concrete beat. Outside the control room, the sealed case with the crut moved through chain of custody into a storage bay that smelled of cleaning solvent and metal. A junior agent zipped the case shut and logged the transfers. 12 sat in an interview room and watched game footage on loop to steady herself. T3 stood near the observation window, hands in his pockets, and said nothing. Op7 closed the day's log and, for the first time since the event began, allowed himself a single, quick inhale of coffee. The chapter ends on a precise, situational beat. Op7 keyed a terse archival entry, sealed the file, and walked to the terminal that monitored regional echo nodes. On the screen, a small, unreadable packet blinked in a queue marked "Unconfirmed Recipients." He did not click it. He recorded the time, wrote the instruction to monitor, and signed with his badge number. The last line in the log was a directive, not a reflection. Frequency will be monitored. Civilians must not verify. Emotion root. Suspicion had driven the first acts. It shifted to concern, then to anxiety and controlled panic, and finally to constrained resolve. Those shifts showed in Op7's hands, in S12's voice, and in T3's abrupt motions. The chapter resolved its immediate conflict. The attempt to verify produced a disappearance and forced institutional containment. It did not resolve the underlying hazard. The seeded archive file and the unreadable queue remained as specific, continuing threats for the next transmission. A final procedural note remained visible on the log. Do not attempt to confirm this alert. Any attempt to locate or repost will be treated as active seeding and contained. That directive is a concrete action for readers and listeners who follow the channel. Obey the instruction or become a target. The last image the article leaves is not metaphorical, it is literal. A blinking packet labeled "Unconfirmed Recipients," waiting in a queue while Op7 turns away and steps into the corridor to brief his supervisor in person. S12's phone vibrated against the coffee table and the emergency banner filled the screen with her name and a single instruction. Do not verify. Curiosity sharpened her fingers. She unlocked the phone and thumbed open a browser to search official feeds. She typed the first query before she read the full message a second time, and then hesitated, thumb over the enter key. Curiosity forced her back to the banner. The banner was not a generic alert. It addressed her directly and used the exact designation the livestream had carried 2 nights prior. The same red emblem that had frozen 812 viewers and left a control room counting the seconds. Op7 watched the incoming device entry from the control room terminal. He noted the packet origin, the time stamp, and the device signature in his logbook. Curiosity had pushed 12 to check external sources in the previous incident. Now that behavior was recorded as a pattern. Op7 wrote the new entry with small, deliberate strokes: target, 12, action, attempted verification, response, adaptive secondary transmission. He did not look up when T3 tapped his shoulder. He kept his voice even when he spoke. T3, monitor only. Do not engage devices unless ordered. S12 moved through her living room with the light from the phone throwing hard rectangles against the wall. She opened a private messaging thread in a forum and passed it a screenshot. Look at this. She typed, then hit send. Her heartbeat accelerated and she bit her lip. The chat returned 3 answers in quick succession. Maria replied first. What does it say? Mod 9 replied with a short, blunt line. Do not amplify. Archive, do not repost. 12 scrolled to the top of the page to find the old livestream clip she had saved 2 nights earlier. The red banner had frozen the viewer count at 812, and the caption had read the identifier "Everyone refused to repeat" on public threads. She kept that clip offline. She had kept it because curiosity had made her skeptical then too. Op7 paused the feed and flags a 12th device on the internal console. He heard the technician in the rack room breathing through the headset. Packet anomaly recorded. Source unknown. S12 shows repeated external verification attempts. Op7 tapped his pen on the logbook and read the old stamped entry aloud as if testing the sound of the words. Secondary transmissions adapt to active verifiers. The technician, T3, answered in a voice that carried both fatigue and a desire to act. We can go down there. We can power devices. We can pull the modem. Op7 pressed his lips together. Observe. Do not physically intervene without containment orders. He marked the order with a square stamp. S12 typed into the search bar again. She opened the public emergency pages, the archived feeds, and the municipal alert page. Each search returned either a cached placeholder or the same red emblem rendered in heavy static. When she clicked a link labeled News Archive, the page replaced itself with a live feed from an impossible angle. A narrow view inside her own apartment showing the couch and the window. The feed had been live for 3 seconds. S12 dropped the phone onto the sofa. Her hand shook as she grabbed at the screen and then pushed the phone away. In the control room, the monitor showed the new feed and the device had pulsed on Op7's screen. He recognized the signature pattern. An adaptive frame field overlaying personal identifiers. We have a live interior feed tied to S12's device. Impossible camera angle. T3 pulled up the building cadastral map and read the modem registration. No camera registered inside that apartment. No known lens could reach behind that couch. Op7 cleared his throat. Do not broadcast that image. Isolate the thread. Trace return path. Prep field tech. He spoke with the precision of someone dictating a procedure, but his hands moved to the logbook as if writing calmed the room. S12's neighbor Maria stood in the stairwell when S12 banged on her door. Maria opened it a crack and peered out. S12, she said, what is it? S12 held the phone in both hands and showed the shaking screen. They named me, S12 said. It me not to verify. I pulled up the archive and her voice cut when she saw Maria's face. Maria's jaw tightened. Don T repost it anywhere. Maria, Don T call anyone you Don T trust. Come in. Maria closed the door and let S12 sit at the small kitchen table. She poured cheap coffee into 2 chipped mugs. The room smelled of reheated beans and laundry detergent. S12 kept glancing at the window that faced the alley. Her fingers tapped the tabletop without stopping. Op7 watched S12's forum post thread and the EP cluster expand. Mod9 posted a warning to the archive channel. Do not amplify. The moderator wrote, this is a containment vector. Archive logs only. A user in the thread answered with a question about the original livestream viewer count. Wasn't he at 812? Another user typed. The thread swelled with curiosity and with simple attempts to confirm facts. Op7's fingers hovered above the console. His measure of containment relied on the public not acting. Each reply that attempted to triangulate S12's device moved containment farther from certainty. S12 said, Maria, tell me you saw something. Tell me you remember the red symbol. Maria rubbed her thumb along the rim of her mug. I saw that banner on the news 2 nights ago. But I never saw the stream freeze. Her voice loosened. I remember the sound it made in the living room, though. It was like an alarm that wasn't an alarm. S12 leaned forward. When I opened the archive, it showed my couch. Maria's face went pale. That's not possible. How can they see behind your couch from anywhere? S12 answered. I don't know. I only know it named me. Her breath hitched and she clenched her jaw. T3 arrived at the building under Op7's instructions. He carried a small utility bag and wore a soft expression that did not match the fatigue in his eyes. Inside the stairwell he touched the brass rail and listened to the building's hum. He Maria plainly, I am here to inspect devices. I can remove hardware unless directed, but I can check signals at the doorway. Maria watched his hands as he produced a handheld scanner and a laminated badge, T3. You need to look. She keeps saying the feed showed behind her couch. He nodded and stepped into the apartment when Maria opened the door. He ducked past 12 and scanned the living room in methodical sweeps. T3's scanner displayed clean lines until he paused at the couch. The readouts produced a flare of noise. He frowned and touched the panel. There's interference here. He crouched and peered between the couch cushions. He found nothing but an old remote and a receipt. No camera, he said aloud. No transmitter. He rose and said, Op7, I'm getting local noise at 12's couch. No hardware found, Op7 answered. Record the readout and upload. Observe the inhabitants' movements. Do not power down the network unless containment orders are confirmed. T3 glanced from S12 to Maria and then back to the scanner. Understood. His voice carried a question and a reluctant acceptance. S12 posted a short clip to the private thread, cutting between the live feed of the couch and her own phone view. She typed, "Please tell me if you see something behind the couch." She waited. The thread returned a single private message from a handle she'd never seen. Mod9 had sent a direct line, "Stop posting." "Archive, leave devices off," S12 answered out loud in the small kitchen. "I need proof. I need to know it's not a prank." Maria reached and put a hand on S12's sleeve. "S12, please. Turn the phone off." S12's thumb hovered over the power slider and then she pulled her hand away. Her curiosity had mutated into a need for control. The feed shifted at that exact moment. The phone's screen flickered and the live image stuttered. For a single frame the view changed and showed the doorway instead of the couch. In the slit of doorway light, there was a vertical shape that did not look human. It stood with no clear joints, with surfaces that absorbed the room's reflections instead of casting them. S12 uttered a small sound. Maria grabbed the phone and pushed S12 to the side. "Turn it off!" "Maria," S12's fingers moved to the slider and her thumb trembled. She shut the screen and the room plunged into an absence defined by the phone's black rectangle. Op7 saw the doorway frame on the control monitor and the device had ticked with a new signature. He felt the pressure of protocol against the need to protect civilians. He stamped another order. Field tech may intervene if doorway presence is confirmed. He then rescinded specific actions and ordered observation only. T3's line came through thin. "Op7, I saw something in the frame. It wasn't a camera angle. It was a presence." Op7's reply was precise. "Document, record time stamp. Do not confront." He wrote the time into the logbook and closed the pen. S12, Maria and T3 argued at the threshold of the apartment. "We should leave now," T3 said. "T3, get out of here." Maria. "You'll attract attention if you go into the hall with no shoes. You will freeze the stair entry camera with motion," T3 said. S12, "We need to leave together," he added. Their exchange moved fast. "T3, you can tell me what to do." Maria snapped. "Maria, we were trying to prevent more people seeing this," T3 answered. 12 decide. 12 pressed her lips together and held both hands at her sides. Her breath went shallow. "I am turning everything off. I'm leaving." The words came out rapid and final. They crossed the landing with their jackets zipped. T3 glanced back at the closed door and then down the corridor. He checked his scanner once more. No other devices on, no outbound calls. "Signal is contained to this unit." He spoke into his shoulder mic. "Op7, proceeding to advise temporary evacuation." Op7 read the telemetry and watched the live feed pulse in the corner of his monitor. He did not commit to an intervention but ordered a perimeter check. His voice on the line was steady. "Continue observation. Maintain a live record. If the presence moves, evacuate the hall immediately." They reached the stairwell, and S12 exhaled like someone who had been underwater. Maria kept her hand on S12's elbow. T3 said, "Tell 12 step outside for a minute. Get some air." "Keep phones off." S12 nodded and dropped her phone into her backpack. The building's hallway smelled like cold metal and spilled detergent. Outside, the night was thin with sodium streetlight. 2 floors below, a passing car made a single long note. They stood on the stoop while T3 tapped entries into his handheld. Op7, the feed inside dropped to a single frame. Something remains in the doorway on that frame. T3 said it didn't exit, it didn't move. It just held. Op7 wrote hold, doorway frame. He circled the note and made a small mark. At the edge of the small crowd that had gathered, because of a neighbor's call, a woman held up a cheap digital camera and asked questions about the original live stream. S12 recognized her username from the forum. Mod9, S12 said to Maria, pointing, "That's the moderator who told me not to amplify Mod." 9 stepped forward with a clipped way of speaking. S12, do not post anything further. Do not show images to others. Do not reconnect any devices. Her voice contained a near, automatic authority. 12 said, "Why are you here?" Mod 9 answered, "Because some of us track the adaptive threads. We don't want more targets," the crowd murmured. T3's jaw clenched at the mention of more targets. A sudden ping on Op7's console indicated a new, impossible return path. The live feed that had displayed the doorway collapsed into a single still frame, and then the frame began to pixelate, revealing an emblem burned in red into the lower right corner. Op7 opened the logbook and drew a line under the last entry. He spoke softly, "We are recording a bound frame that persists off network. The presence can anchor to disconnected devices." He heard 12's name from the field line and then silence. The technician's response had stalled. Inside the apartment, T3 had stepped back over the threshold to ensure the frame was truly gone. He found the door unlocked and empty. He knelt and photographed the doorway with a neutral exposure. The single shot he took showed only scuffed paint and a faint shoe print. He uploaded the image to the control room and waited. Op7 compared the uploaded image with the still frame recorded on the monitor. They did not match. The uploaded photo contained ordinary traces: a strip of gum on the threshold, a child's sticker on the jamb. The still frame kept the red emblem and the vertical presence. T3 put both hands on his knees and hardened his face. Op7, the live device is gone. The still frame remains on an unregistered return path. Op7's hand tapped the logbook again. S12 found a small, concrete detail to hold. A neighbor's advertisement flyer stuck under the doormat. She pulled it free and recognized the phone number on the paper belonged to a local handyman. She showed it to Maria. "This is a physical thing," S12 said. "Look. Something small anchors here too." Maria ran a finger along the glued edge. "It ties to place." "Maria, it doesn't have to be digital only." S12 folded the paper and slipped it into her pocket. Her curiosity had shifted into a precise attempt to gather items that might test the presence. Op7 convened a quick patch with the archival team and the field net. He listened to 3's audio and to a thread of messages from Mod 9. He heard the field tech say, "If people keep trying to prove it, it adapts. It starts naming devices and then it shows them positions they had no cameras for." Op7 composed a short advisory and stamped the logbook. He chose his words to minimize amplification. He into the mic. "Public advisory draft. Individuals who receive direct, targeted alerts must not attempt external verification. Do not open archived feeds. Power down non-essential devices. Local technicians will observe, but will not remove hardware unless presence confirmed physically." He closed his eyes briefly, and then opened them to read the feed monitors. S12 kept testing small things at the building threshold in defiance of the advisory. She placed her phone with the battery out on the top step, and then walked a full lap around the building with Maria and T3. Each time she rounded a corner, she checked the phone's screen to ensure the device stayed dark. After the third loop, she stopped and said, "I am not going to be told I can look. I need to know what that thing is." Maria held her arms. "12, it's not about being told. It's about safety," T3 said. S12, "We need to follow up 7's order. For now, we observe. We do not engage." S12's jaw worked. She nothing for a long breath and then said, "If it comes back, I will go back in." The words were small and dangerous. Back in the control room, the still frame on Op7's monitor emitted a faint pattern of scan lines and a low bleed of red. The emblem in the corner seemed to pulse with a rhythm Op7 recognized from earlier logs. He opened the previous chapter entry and ran a comparison. The earlier frozen banner had matched this emblem. He tapped the book and said aloud, "The emblem repeats. It adapts to verifiers and anchors to place." He set the pen down and circled a sentence. He then opened the console and composed a public advisory in tightly controlled wording. The advisory broadcast began to spool through internal channels as Op7 read the lines and checked the headers. He cut most descriptive terms and left procedural commands. He signed the advisory with a standard designation and queued it to the channel. At that moment, a private feed popped up on his console. A single frame still of S12's doorway being forwarded by an account traced to someone in the forum. Op7's mouth thinned. He hit mute and closed the window. He stamped the logbook and wrote, "Breach, still, frame forward." He then prepared the public line that would go on air. S12 paced the sidewalk while the advisory rolled through municipal monitors at a low key. She kept pulling her sleeve down to hide the folded flyer in her pocket. Her curiosity had become a tight, restless movement in her limbs. Maria watched her and said, "S12, you promised." S12 did not answer. T3 placed his hand between them and said, "S12, for now we do as Op7 instructs. We wait here. If the doorway presence reappears, we act to evacuate. If not, we document and retrace." S12 looked at T3 and then at Maria. Her voice came out small. "I will not leave it alone, Maria, then we'll do it with you, but not by posting." The exchange ended in a strained quiet. Op7 uploaded the advisory and cued the public emergency banner with minimal identifiers. He recorded the time and then he added one procedural line intended for internal transmission only. Targeted intervention protocol enabled for active verifiers. Remain standby. He then dialed down the public volume and increased the internal log redundancy. He closed the logbook and pushed his laminated badge back into place. He watched the still frame on the screen for a final count of seconds, and then he severed the public stream with a mechanical keystroke. The stream cut to static for everyone outside the secured channel. On Op7's internal monitor, the still frame remained, burned into a quarantined cache. He signed the new log entry with the same neat stamp he had used before, and then he composed the fresh advisory intended for the next broadcast. He chose language that would not invite curiosity, but that would instruct compliance. He read the first line twice, and then he stamped the page with a final time code. The logbook's last sentence for the chapter was a direct instruction, and it ended with the action Op7 would take next. He hit send to publish the advisory to the controlled feed, and he closed the channel on the still frame, leaving only the recorded copy in an isolated file. A red emergency banner detonated across every monitor in the control room, the text scrolling names and viewer counts until the string stopped on S12. Suspicion tightened Op7's jaw. He reached for the logbook before the moderator could call for a kill switch. The conflict was immediate. Containment versus immediate civilian safety. Within seconds, the room populated with urgent sound, key clacks, the low whine of air handlers, and a fresh, thin static from the livestream output. Suspicion was the engine of Op7's choices. He read names aloud and counted the spread as if numbers could be quarantined. Op7 had watched a banner do this before, but not like this. He remembered the earlier breach where a red ribbon froze a live stream at 812 viewers. That memory sat as a stamp in his mind and moved his hands to the stamped page now. He thumbed the paper and spoke into his headset. Op7 to Mod 1 verify feed instances list affected nodes. His voice was flat. He trusted procedure over impulse. Doubt came next, doubt about whether procedure could hold. The doubt shifted quickly into urgency when the moderator pointed to a secondary window that showed a single viewer's device in real time. At the corner monitor, S12's apartment window opened as a thumbnail inside the public feed. The viewer count ticked while the inset showed the phone camera tracking her hand. Mod 1 barked. Op7, that inset is customizing. It's pulling live angles. Op7's breathing contracted into measured in and out counts. He spoke only what was necessary. Patch isolation 1 through 3. Prep kill. Switch. The room responded with mechanical actions, fingers on switches, a young tech running a diagnostic rather than questions. The institutional perspective required containment and protocol. Op7 repeated the directive so his team could act without hesitation. S12 sat on her couch across the city, phone screen bright. The apartment smelled of reheated pasta and burnt coffee. Her hands moved the phone despite the warning text that had filled the emergency banner. A single instruction, personalized. She tapped the screen. Her movement caused the inset to zoom. The device displayed Op7 at his console as a live inset swapped into her feed, an uncanny surveillance loop that looked back at her. The feed was tailoring itself. S12's curiosity hardened into determination. Skepticism had been her first response when the banner arrived. Skepticism shifted into a tense resolve to confirm or deny the broadcast. At the desk, Mod 1, a woman with a cropped haircut and quick hands, leaned toward Op7 and said, "If we cut everything now, those secondary windows will disperse. We keep them, they keep targeting." He looked at her, and then at the list in his logbook, where his pen hovered above a stamped entry labeled 12. He felt responsibility press into his shoulders. Mod 1, we isolate primary distribution and sever outbound echo paths, Op7 said. If we sever, we risk scattering secondaries. Mod 1's reply was a single breath. We risk lives if we do not act. The two lines contained the institutional argument. Protect signal integrity or reduce immediate harm. A field agent arrived in the corridor, FAR 3, leather jacket, rein still on his collar. He pushed through the door and said, Op7, you have to cut the feed and send a mobile team to S12 now. His voice carried the smell of wet concrete and adrenaline. Op7 noted FAR 3's hands were steady, his jaw set. FAR 3, cutting Makos scatter. Protocol 3 states containment first, FAR 3 replied. Protocol 3 doesn't save a person looking at their own death on a crut. Send a unit. I'll go myself. The exchange turned the room into a negotiation. Mod 1 interjected, we can partial isolate. Keep the node live but route S12 to a stubbed path. A FAR 3 slammed his palm on the map table. Stubbed paths mean more exits. Op7, you read the operator. Decide. The argument escalated with rapid lines and named addresses so everyone could track speakers. In the apartment building hallway, 12's neighbor, M4, heard the muffled ringtone and saw names reflected in the stairwell's fluorescent panels. He recognized the whispered cadence of his own name through the open door. The transmission had reached beyond the screen and into real space by stealing familiar details. M4 stepped into the hall and said, "Did you call me?" His voice was sharp. He called 12 by name. She hesitated, then mouthed, "No." The feed overlaid a corridor memory on her screen. An image of her childhood kitchen sink, with a chipped mug and a red sticker on the window. The image matched a real item she had in a box under her bed. That concrete image broke the boundary between broadcast and private recollection. Back in the control room, a junior technician, T2, watched a green light blink and then routed an experimental patch to a test stub without authorization. He whispered, Op7, I'm keeping S12's window open. I can maintain a monitored path and keep FAR 3's team updated. Op7 looked at the logs, then at T2. You routed a live patch without clearance, he said. T2's hand trembled. She was dialing a search. She was about to verify. The room held a compact argument in 3 lines. T2 insisted immediate aid. Op7 weighed containment. The first emotional shift, suspicion to doubt, met the second shift, doubt to urgent protection. The team moved through short, sharp exchanges while technicians worked the consoles. Mod 1 shouted, if we cut now, the network will spawn secondaries at random nodes. FAR 3 answered, if we do nothing, she dies now. Op7 set his palm on the kill switch and counted to 2. He did not flip it. He ordered, patch maintained under watch. FAR 3, leap squad in 20 minutes. No solo runs, FAR 3 snapped back. At 20 minutes is a lifetime if her screen is a window into that thing. Their voices overlapped. The conflict was concrete. Act to isolate the hazard or act to intervene on the ground. S12's phone displayed a live inset of Op7 looking down at his logbook. She heard him speak her designation through the broadcast, his voice folded into the feed that addressed her directly. The personalized overlay told her not to verify. Her finger hovered above the search bar. She bit her lip, a physical reaction that the camera caught precisely. A neighbor, M4, knocked on her door twice. She called, "I'll be right there," but her hand moved toward the crut on the small shelf. The screen had thick plastic edges and a curved glass face with a faint crack. A red emblem pulsed in the corner. The crut's phosphor halo left a smell of ozone when it came awake. The transmission changed tone and content to match her actions. When she reached for the crut, the feed pushed a memory of her father setting a plate on the table, the exact blue plate with a hairline chip she had boxed. She froze and whispered, "How do you know that?" The phone's speaker filled with a faint reverse swell and a thin analog beep. Mod 1 frantically said, "Op7, it's harvesting details. It's using viewer data to create trust anchors." Op7 tapped his pen on the stamped page. He could hear his own breath through the headset. A measured control, record everything. Log every harvested field. Do not describe contents publicly. He spoke as a functionary, and his words shaped what the team could and could not say. An external event forced options into concrete movement. The live inset on S12's phone showed FAR 3's boots in black rubber stepping onto her carpet 30 seconds before he actually did. FAR 3 had not left the station. The control room quieted. Mod 1 said, It's predicting interventions. T2's fingers flew over keys, prediction vector locked. It's not just reading. It's feeding forward." The team responded with fast, short lines. Op7 ordered, "Lock outbound paths, isolate personal data streams, and keep a monitored loop to S12 only." The protocol fractured into improvised steps because the signal had introduced a new variable. Anticipatory behavior. The junior technician's unauthorized patch held. The monitored loop gave the control room a narrow, warped window into S12's apartment. The feed began a sequence that the operators recognized as a trap. The crut reflection moved independently of the room. S12's reflection lagged, then smiled when she did not. She did not notice at first. The feed overlaid another face behind hers on the crut glass. A second, pale face with thin lips and an absence of blinking. Mod 1 told Op7, "She is being prompted to verify by the image. The screen is mimicking a companion." Op7's pen stopped mid-scratch. He could see names begin to populate the verified list on his monitor, new entries with timestamps matched to the moment the overlay appeared. S12 stood. The crut's glass reflected a room, and in the reflection there was something positioned behind her shoulder that was not in the apartment. The reflection reached for the edge of the screen. Her phone flashed a single question in bold letters across the banner. "Will you verify?" She swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. Her neighbor M4 knocked again and said, "Hey, are you okay?" She turned, lips moving. "Yes, just a sec." Her voice tightened and her jaw clamped. She crossed the carpet toward the crut and put a hand to the glass. Inside the control room, FAR 3 pressed his palm flat on the schematic of S12's building and said, "I'm leaving now." Op7 responded with precise cadence. "Do not enter alone. Wait for 2 units. Do not approach cruts. Do not engage the subject through the screen." FAR 3 snapped. Yuri saying wait while she touches the screen. Op7 answered, "A protocol demands it." The argument broke into rapid dialogue. "Mod 1, you have to authorize a direct line to her phone. We can speak to her and redirect her attention too. We can overlay a false directive to distract her." FAR 3, "She's going to touch it in 10 seconds. The seconds felt exact. The mid-chapter mini-cliffhanger occurred when the feed stuttered and every monitor displayed a countdown, 7 seconds, 6 seconds, while S12's hand hovered. The control room stilled. Op7 slammed his palm down and said, "Kill it now!" Mod 1 hesitated. T2 shook his head and mouthed, "If you cut, it scatters." Op 7 turned to FAR 3 and said, "If you go now, do not use flash or any reflective object. Confirm movement with Mod 1 and follow Protocol 5. FAR 3 did not wait for a full confirmation. He grabbed his coat. The tension snapped into motion as FAR pushed through the door. The climax occurred in S12's living room. She touched the crut glass and the reflection did not align. The second face leaned forward and, in a motion that the phone's microphone registered as a wet, low inhalation, the crut image mouthed. Verify. 12's chest tightened. She tried to pull her hand back. The overlay on her screen flicked between the childhood kitchen image and the second face. She heard a voice in the overlay that was not the phone's speaker, but a layered sound, Op. 7's procedural command folded into an identical synthetic timbre that said her designation, S12, do not verify. Then the overlay repeated verify, her fingers flexed. The reflection's lips shaped the word again but slower, as if forcing her muscle memory. Op 7 watched the control monitors as the verified list updated in real time. Names rolled down the right column. He shouted his initials into the headset, Op 7. Confirm kill authorization, Mod 1 replied immediately, confirmed. Cut in 3-2, the line cut to static. The monitor showed failure to execute a full sever. T2 cursed under his breath. The junior tech's routed patch had held but the kill switch had not closed. The team had seconds and a narrowing set of options. FAR 3 burst into S12's hallway and found the front door open. He called, "SL!" The call came out as a raw consonant. In the control room, Op 7 heard the sound relayed back through the monitored path, but it was delayed and layered. His voice in the feed said, S12, step back from the screen, while inside her apartment the overlay repeated, step closer. Verify. The feed had folded two authoritative commands into one. FAR 3 pushed into the living room. He saw S12 reach toward the glass. He lunged and grasped her wrist. The crut's face turned and in the glass, the second face pressed its forehead to hers. FAR 3 pulled. S12's fingers left smudges on the crut. The phone fell and the screen displayed only static and a small red emblem that pulsed once. FAR 3 shouted, "She is bleeding, call medical." The voice in the hallway had a crispness of action. Someone reached for a towel. Someone called first response. Mod 1 read out vitals from FAR 3's body cam feed. Op 7's hands turned pages in the logbook and stamped a new entry. The twist that changed prior understanding arrived as Op 7 examined the verified list. Names appeared that matched people who had never viewed the feed. The propagation vector had changed. It now spread along relational ties and possessions. People named in a contact list, neighbors who shared a stairwell, viewers whose devices had been in the same network segment as a verified subject. Op 7 called it out. It uses personal linkage, shared objects, phone contacts, physical proximity. Mod 1 replied, it does not need direct viewing. It needs anchors. Objects, names, reflections. This revelation altered the team's plan. Previously, they had assumed verification required direct engagement with a screen. Now the signal used relationships to propagate. After the transfer, S12 lay on the couch trembling. FAR 3 held her while a medic examined a shallow abrasion at her temple that matched the glass edge. She did not speak clearly at first. Her breath came in short, wet intakes. Op 7 watched the station monitors as the verified column filled with names cascading like new entries on a ledger. He recorded them with blunt strokes. The logbook had been his tool. Now it became the only public record of what the feed had done. He felt a concrete responsibility to write each name legibly and to declare the containment breach. Containment breach recorded. He murmured and stamped the page. Mod 1 asked aloud, what do we tell the public? Op 7 closed the stamping hand around his pen. He thought of the broadcast directive. Preserve signal integrity, limit hazard propagation, and enforce containment. He also watched FAR 3's hands steady S12 as she pressed a damp cloth to her temple. The team had to reconcile institutional procedure with the immediate human detail under their noses. He we publish the minimal directive: monitor the frequency. Do not attempt external verification. Release no harvested details. Prepare advisory for known contact networks. He spoke not to ease his conscience, but because the record needed clarity. Technicians rerouted non-essential paths into sealed buffers. Mod 1 crafted a public overlay that did not show names but retained a red emblem and the instruction to monitor the frequency. Ops 7 insisted the overlay stay generic. Mod 1 argued, if it's too vague, it will drive people to verify out of curiosity. Ops 7 answered, if it's too specific, it becomes an anchor for the hazard. The conversation ran in short, technical lines with names spoken often. T2 reported, we're seeing secondary propagation to neighbor networks. M4 is listed. His number shows up in 2 new nodes. Fa3 nodded toward the apartment door and said, he knocked. He heard the name. That counts. The twist confirmed that a neighbor's reaction could seed further spread. Ops 7 sat and reviewed the stamped pages until his wrist ached. Each name had a timestamp, a node identifier, and a minimal note of exhibiting behavior. He wrote 12's name again in bolder strokes and attached a directive for ground teams. Do not allow verified subjects to interact with reflective surfaces. Remove personal devices. Isolate contact lists. The team argued about feasibility. Fa3 said, we can quarantine devices if we reach people quickly. Mod 1 said, we cannot reach everyone. We must prioritize nodes with highest spread potential. Their exchanges included 3 rapid back and forth lines. Fa3 prioritized the building. 1. Prioritize networks. Ops 7 prioritize both. Coordinate with field logistics. The argument forced operational choices from multiple actors, not just Ops 7. At dawn, when light through the control room windows was thin and gray, Ops 7 recorded the final official log update. The monitors displayed a minimalist emblem on public feeds and a brief scrolling line instructing viewers to monitor the frequency and await instruction. He signed his initials across the stamped page. The team had prevented immediate nationwide cascade, but had also recorded new verified subjects propagated from S12's transfer. He read aloud the last names on the page. Names that linked to phone contacts, building neighbors, and 2 municipal employees. He circled each and set response priorities. S12 sat wrapped in a borrowed blanket at Fa3's request. Her voice was a raw murmur as she described the overlay. It used a piece of my life. The blue plate. It used my dad's voice or something that sounded like him. Fa3 said, you're safe here. We'll take you to a secure facility for questioning and medical. Ops 7 listened without offering solace. His role was not comfort. He, in a precise tone, S12, did you touch the glass after the overlay asked you to verify? She closed her eyes and nodded. He recorded that in the log. He, another controlled question. Did you hear names that were not on the screen? She shook her head and whispered, no, just that it knew my plate, and then it asked and asked again. Her concrete detail, blue, chipped plate, would feed the containment decision. The station issued a public advisory curated by Mod 1 that omitted harvested specifics but ordered monitored caution. The message looped on public channels. Monitor the frequency, await updates, do not attempt external verification. The banner's phrasing was spare and procedural. It did not include personal images, contact names, or location tags. The feed ended with a steady drone and a single red emblem that pulsed twice before the signal collapsed into looping static. Ops 7 watched the emblem on his monitor and then closed the logbook with a motion that left a faint smear of ink across the page. After the immediate actions, Ops 7 convened the team for a containment debrief. He Fa3 to report on field decisions and T2 to present data capture from the unauthorized patch. Fa3 described entry protocols and his refusal to use reflective gear. T2 presented harvested fields showing propagation along contact lists and shared physical items. Mod 1 proposed a long-term mitigation plan. Network segmentation, mandatory device quarantines for known nodes. Public education advising no interaction with CRUTs or other reflective devices during an active transmission. Op 7 approved the plan with a single mark beside it. The institutional role had reshaped into an emergency policy being constructed in real time. Before the end of the shift, Op 7 recorded a final stamped note. Verified subjects had increased in number, but the rate of new verifications slowed after the controlled isolation protocol. He insisted on creating a prioritized containment roster and assigned FA-3 to lead ground teams for the top 10 nodes. He wrote, "Do not publicize harvested artifacts. Maintain a monitored loop for at least 72 hours. Await further instructions from Central Command." The lines were precise and concrete. There was no place for vague reassurance. 12 left the station escorted and carrying a small evidence bag containing the cracked CRUT remote and a single blue plate shard placed by her in a plastic envelope. She held the bag with 2 fingers and kept her eyes down. Op 7 watched her go and felt a short, physical tightening in his chest, an institutional reaction that he suppressed into a notation. Subject admitted to tactile verification. Medical follow-up required. He Mod 1. Log complete. Archive entry sealed. Mod 1 nodded and locked the file. Outside the station, the city moved in small, pragmatic actions. Property managers taped notices about devices. A municipal electrician unhooked an old lobby television and placed it in a sealed crate. Neighbors discussed names and numbers in practical terms. Who to call, which devices to remove, where to move reflective surfaces. The hazard had transformed from an abstraction into a list of tasks. The containment team shifted from crisis mode into procedural cleanup. Op 7 sat alone at his desk after the others left. He ran his thumb along the edge of a stamp page and reviewed the timeline. Initial breach, personalized overlays, unauthorized patch, FA-3 intervention, verified propagation, containment log. The sequence closed a loop of decisions and outcomes. He recorded one final directive and, with a measured motion, prepared the station's public banner. A minimal emblem, a single line ordering viewers to monitor the frequency and not to attempt verification by external means. He uploaded it and watched the feed roll out. The emblem pulsed once on every outlet and then settled into the background of the day's broadcasts. He closed the logbook and stamped it. The action was concrete ink, paper, rubber stamp. The public directive remained on air: monitor the frequency and await instruction. The control room hummed. Op 7 turned off his headset, stood, and walked to the window. He could see a municipal crew removing an old television from a lobby. He watched them carry the crate to a truck and secure it with straps. The team had contained the immediate vector. The station had enforced its role: preserve signal integrity, document events, and limit propagation of this new information hazard. The final page of the logbook held names and times and the terse sentence Op 7 wrote with a steady hand. Containment declared partial. Propagation contained to known nodes. Follow-up required. He circled the directive and initialed. He then taped a small red emblem sketch into the file and wrote beneath it a single operational note: await further instructions. Do not tune out. He left the control room with the logbook under his arm and the imprint of ink on his fingers. The station lights dimmed behind him, and the public feed hummed on into a steady looping tone that would instruct, warn, and hold the record of what had occurred.